Um, Thank you to Corinne for inviting us to come talk about our campaign. We're excited to see you all. And could I just see a show of hands? How many folks have been to MoMA in New York? Ah, very nice, thank you. So in front of you on your table, you have a little note card and a pencil, and while we're talking, you can doodle or talk about your experience there. And if you haven't been to MoMA, feel free to fantasize about what you might see when you get there. And then at the end, we'll collect them and make them part of our project. So what we're going to talk about today is risk, and we're going to talk about a problem that we had at MoMA. Around last year, this time, we were at the end of what we called a perfect storm. We had an amazing year with special exhibitions, including Tim Burton and Marina Abramovich and William Kentridge and Cartier-Bresson, all happening at the same time. And it was amazing, and there was incredible press and incredible lines around the door, and it was in a historic year for attendance. And then that ended, as special exhibitions often do, and we were faced with the idea of what do we do next? How do we get the public to know that they can come to MoMA and always have a special experience, and one that is not always dependent on special exhibitions? Because as you all know, special exhibitions have differing levels of popular appeal. They're expensive to present, and sometimes you don't know something's going to be a blockbuster until you're already into it, and then it has to close. And you don't always have the ability to extend shows, although we all wish we did. So we started with a problem. We knew that visitors from more than 100 countries were coming through the museum. No two of them were having the same experience, but we struggled with how to capture that experience and how to present that experience in a meaningful way. So as we do when we have a problem, we sit down and we write ourselves a little assignment brief. And we do our creative work in-house at MoMA. So Julia and me and the team set ourselves the following problem. How to create a promise to the consumer. What does it mean to them to come to the museum, and how do we talk about it in a way that is not marketing talk? We wanted to understand that the visitor has a lot of competition for their precious leisure hours, that a decision to go to the museum might mean that they're not going to see a movie or a visit to a park, or even just hanging out at a pub for a few hours. We wanted it to connect to our existing brand identity, which we spend a lot of time crafting, but we wanted this campaign to have a different look and feel. We wanted it to be seasonless, and we wanted it to appeal to particularly tourists to New York, of which there are many, many millions, and we capture some of them, but we thought we could do a better job in attracting the domestic tourists. We get a lot of international tourists coming to MoMA, but a lesser amount of domestic tourists. So that was the problem, and so we took the brief, and then we led from the brief into the brainstorm, and Julie's going to talk to you about the brainstorm. But let's see, I forgot a couple of slides here. So this is an inspirational quote from Marcel Duchamp about spectators. And this is just, we've often observed in our own roles, working, walking, talking with people through the museum, how interesting they all look. We don't get to talk to them enough, but we wondered what is on their minds when they're there. What do they feel? What do they think? What do they have to say to us? And there's formal ways to do that through, like, visitor services, and if you have a real complaint. But we don't get to talk to people on the regular side of things, the day in and the day outside. So the campaign that we ended up with, the theme line is, I went to MoMA and it's an open-ended question that allows people to fill in their own set of experiences. So over to Julia.
So the way how we came up with this was actually in a conversation. We took the brief, went to the graphic design department, which is in-house, and Kim was there, and we were just starting to brainstorm and having a conversation of, like, what happens with us when we go and travel, and the power of word of mouth, that we go home and we say, like I went to MoMA, I went to New York, and I saw this in the celebrity, or I discovered this, and we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if someone says, I went to MoMA and it changed my life, or I went to MoMA and I experienced this and this, because there are certain things that are happening only on that one day. Like we had, for example, Patti Smith come up and do an impromptu performance for 20 minutes. So we were wondering, like, what do these people now tell their friends when they go home? So the sentence, I went to MoMA and was born in that conversation. And we started Googling that sentence in quotation marks, and we found out that people already were talking about it. They were saying, I went to MoMA and on blogs in a sentence, or as comments on a Facebook, and on a Facebook thread. And our challenge or our worry was, like, how would people react if these comments would be recorded or prompted when we ask them? Would they still be so honest? Because they were very quirky already on those blogs. So we started, we said, okay, let's have this as our main thread, and let's start executing this campaign. And as we all in the digital age, we immediately started dreaming of these big digital LED screens in the lobby, and having people to, like, key in their response in these kiosks. And then we started talking to the vendors, and the estimates started rolling in, and there were hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the timeline was also really short, so we only had like 3 weeks before our first ad in the New York Times. So we quickly reverted to the absolute basic tools of communication, which is a pencil and a piece of paper that everybody could understand. There was no, like, sometimes the technology is the barrier, but like for older people or really young people. So everybody understood what to do with a pencil and a piece of paper. So we printed these pretty inexpensively and quite fast. So our first experiment was on a Thursday night when our museum was open late. We put up a giant plexiglass box in the lobby, and we distributed those cards and pencils. And we did not ask them for their email address, just for their name and where they're from. And we convinced the curators for that one night to have a wall in the museum where we could pin up something else than art. So that was a first. So that really simple request had a lot of response from the visitors. They were super excited to draw these pictures and write their responses. So we had plenty to choose from. The entries started to pour in, literally, in thousands. People were talking about how they got up in the morning at 5 o'clock just to come to New York to see the Starry Night, which made them cry. Or they filled out, they said, I went to MoMA and I was inspired to create. And some people were even puzzled, saying, I went to MoMA and I almost understood Cubism. There were just a few negative ones, which we were really actually worried about in the beginning. What if there were profanities? Or, I mean, we could just ignore them, but there were just a few, like, I would say maybe 1% of them. But those negative ones were really helpful for us, because some of them were saying that they were looking for the library and they were asking guards and they couldn't answer and they couldn't find the library, or someone couldn't find the entry and the exit. They were confused in one of the special exhibitions. So we in the graphic design department could immediately react on it and make that sign and put it up. So these lines were powerful on different levels for us. So as previously mentioned, we had a deadline for the New York Times of cards to choose from. So because we're a marketing department, we also had to create ads. So we used either just single cards in the New Yorker, or whole walls in the style of wheat pasting, posters downtown, as well as bus shelters, and animated online ads. We quickly discovered common themes, like love was one, or inspiration, or kids were drawing, and even specific content of exhibitions, like the Picasso guitar, bubbled up. So we were able to bundle those themes within our department, and reuse them in dedicated blog posts that we published weekly. We used all the loved ones in the Wow section in the Sunday Times, or the kids drawing in the Time Out Kids, or even an exhibition ad for Picasso guitars. So simultaneously, I mean, while we were collecting the cards, and we're collecting them daily in the cafe, while we have a dedicated captured audience, while people are waiting for their food, they really can reflect on their visit and draw. And we take them back every night and scan them in, so it's a quite labor-intensive project at the end. But we do have plans to figure out how to make it easier on our side. So we're uploading, at the end of the day, we always upload these cards where people can browse through and share them with their friends on Facebook and Twitter. And this site is actually in the process of being updated, where people could also filter through common themes. And it was here where someone found a particular one of those cards that bubbled to the surface in the blogosphere, that of a small little girl.
Well, one of the things when we wrote ourselves the problem and the brief that we didn't know at the time, but MoMA doesn't have any dinosaurs. And we did not know that this was a problem until we did this campaign and got to hear it directly from our visitors. A little girl, Annabelle, from New York City. We don't know much more about her than that. And she wrote this card that talked about seeing a coat closet and 2 water fountains, but being very disappointed that we do not have a dinosaur, and how can we call ourselves a museum? And some of you saw this yesterday in Victor's presentation. Well, this really struck people, the press in particular, and the blogosphere, and it was circulated on many as 200 blogs. The Smithsonian did their own blog entry about why doesn't MoMA have dinosaurs, questioning that. And we got calls from another prominent science museum offering to loan us a dinosaur for the sculpture garden if we wanted to. We chose not to do that, but it kind of taught us a lesson about being open to the unexpected. And I think that Annabelle is going to go on to be an art critic at one of our prominent newspapers someday. One of the press called her the youngest art critic. So what did we learn at the end of all this? I think we learned to embrace risk, and our director is always telling us that modern and contemporary artists take risks every day, and it's our job as communicators to take similar risks in our own field. And that's a hard thing to do, because I think we've all been trained in PR and marketing to control our message, control our environment, and control the response. And those days are numbered if they're not over already. So we've learned that our education department also went, after we launched this campaign, they said, you know, what you guys really did, you didn't know you were doing it, but what you really did was create a qualitative study. It's an open-ended question that we can analyze using traditional research methodology. So they came back, and when we were sifting through the cards, we were looking for marketing messages that would resonate with the public, that would be funny or interesting or dynamic. They were looking for themes of thought, so trends, and they isolated these 3 trends out of many thousands of cards about that people coming to the museums want to express creativity. They don't just want to receive it. They want to be on the producing side of creativity. They want to feel connected to the museum in a more profound way than just paying a ticket and walking through our halls. They want that connection to sustain after the visit. And they want to be inspired and to use that inspiration in their own jobs. We know that many of our visitors come from the fields from education, from film, from other performing arts, and many come from advertising, media, and PR, and they're using what they see at MoMA as inspiration in their jobs. There was one card that really struck me, and I thought that might be a good sentiment to talk to you all about, and it was about emotional connection. And this one person is from Atlanta, and she said, I think it's a she, her name is Britt, I had that lovely moment of being completely stunned by a work of art that's only happened to me once before, and is such a wonderful feeling that transcends all barriers of time, age, language, and nationality. And when I read that, I thought, that is a feeling that also transcends museums, because all of us have the potential in our museums to offer that form of transcendence to our visitors. And if we believe in the power of art and artists to connect with people, it's our job as communicators to take those same risks that artists would do and give people the opportunity to connect, because that's clearly what they are seeking. And I think it's what we need to do. So that's our story, and thank you.